Max Baer Jr. eventually talks about Nancy Kulp when he is 88 years old. He was born Maximilian Adelbert Baer Jr. on December in Oakland, California, on the December 4, 1937. Max Baer Jr. was almost born into a story. Max Baer Sr. was the world heavyweight boxing champion from 1934 to 1935. He was a dynamic and controversial sports figure whose fame overshadowed the family name. Baer Jr. grew up in the shadow of such a big personality, which gave him both confidence and a strong understanding of the challenges that come with being in the public eye. Baer Jr. was athletic, good-looking, and naturally charming, so he seemed like he was going to be a star right away. He went to Santa Clara University, where he studied philosophy and did quite well in sports like boxing and golf. He never played sports professionally, though. Instead, he became interested in acting because of the creative opportunities that film and TV offered during the industry's post-war growth. Hollywood in the late 1950s was looking for youthful talent, and Baer Jr. was just what they were looking for. He got his start in acting with minor but constant parts on TV shows including 77 Sunset Strip, Hawaiian Eye, and Cheyenne. These roles showed off his cinematic charisma, but in 1962, fate stepped in and changed his career in a way that would define and complicate it. Baer Jr. played Jethro Bowden on the Beverly Hillbillies, a broad comedy about a rural family that suddenly becomes rich and part of Beverly Hills society. As Jethro Baer made one of TV's most famous characters, the cute, dumb, and overconfident young man whose malapropisms, physical comedy, and exaggerated swagger were key to the show's popularity. The Beverly Hillbillies was a big deal in pop culture. At its height, it was the most popular TV show in the U.S., with tens of millions of people watching it every week. The main reason people liked it was Baer Jr.'s performance. His timing, physique, and dedication to the part turned Jethro from a basic glitch into a figure that people loved. But the success of the part would turn out to be a double-edged sword. Typecasting came swiftly after that, and Baer Jr. had a hard time being seen as anything other than Jethro Bowden. Baer Jr. had to deal with the hard truth that many TV stars experience when the Beverly Hillbillies stopped in 1971 after 9 seasons. It can be tougher to get out of a famous role than to get into one. Casting directors were afraid that people would never be able to tell the actor from the character. Therefore, they were hesitant to give him important or very diverse roles. Even though he was talented and had big dreams, doors in Hollywood started to close. Instead of giving up in frustration, Baer Jr. reinvented himself. He showed amazing foresight and financial sense by switching to producing and directing, which gave him a second career behind the camera. He started his own production firm in the 1970s and began filming low-budget movies that turned out to be remarkably profitable. His biggest hit was Moan County Line 1974, a nasty exploitation movie based on real events. The movie was made on a small budget, yet it did well at the box office, making millions and cementing Baer Jr.'s reputation as a smart independent filmmaker. Max Baer Jr. was keen to show that his creative goals went well beyond the small screen and the shadow of his famous TV character. By the middle of the 1970s, in 1975, he made a big and very personal move into cinema production by writing, producing, and directing The Wild McCulloch, a gritty Southern drama that heralded his entry as a serious auteur. Baer didn't just stay behind the camera. He became part of the plot and played the complicated character of Culver Robinson. This role let him go deeper into darker, more complex emotional area than people had ever seen him do before. The movie was a declaration of independence, showing that Baer was ready to take complete charge of his artistic future. The next year, Baer directed and produced Ode to Billie Joe 1976, which was based on Bobby Gentry's melancholy popular song. The movie really connected with people, and it was a big hit at the box office. This solidified Baer's reputation as a filmmaker who could make movies that were both artistic and popular. Its popularity made him more well-known in Hollywood and showed that he had a great sense of storytelling that worked on a national level. Baer would only direct one more film, Hometown USA, in 1979, but Ode to Billie Joe was the best thing he ever did as a director. A lot of people say that this was the time he really broke free from typecasting. After years of making movies, Baer turned his attention to business with the same intensity and vision that had fueled his creative work. He became a smart investor in real estate and the casino business, starting a second profession that was just as daring as his Hollywood work. Baer wanted to develop a full-scale Beverly Hillbillies empire, a big undertaking that would turn the popular TV show into a real brand. He was inspired by a blend of nostalgia and entrepreneurial ambition. Plans for attractions like Jethro's Beverly Hills Mansion and themed casinos based on the famous show that made him famous were at the heart of this concept. Baer apparently struck a deal with network officials that gave him the rights to use the show's names, characters, and other well-known aspects. This move showed both his financial sense and his long-standing connection to the series. With those rights, he was able to parlay his work in television into a lasting business legacy. Baer Jr. was more than just a former sitcom star. He was a filmmaker, entrepreneur, and visionary who constantly reinvented himself while honoring the cultural phenomenon that first caught America's attention. Baer Jr.'s connection with the Beverly Hillbillies was still complex, even though he was doing well in business. For years, he openly complained about how the show made it hard for him to get acting jobs. But as time went on, his point of view changed. He realized how much joy the series offered to people and how it changed culture. Jethro Bod went from being a burden to being a badge of honor and an immortal character in TV history. As he became older, Baer Jr. grew more quiet. He stayed involved in artistic pursuits and business initiatives, but he stayed out of the public glare. He also fought in court over the use of his likeness, especially in connection with casino slot machines based on Jethro, showing how important it was to him to protect his legacy and intellectual property. Baer Jr. came back into the public eye in 2014, but not as an actor. Instead, he was a motivated businessman eager to defend a concept he had been working on for decades. That year, he sued CBS in a high-profile case, saying that the network had secretly made a deal with a restaurant franchise in Des Moines, Iowa, called Jethro's BBQ. Baer said this decision adversely hurt his long-planned plans for the Beverly Hillbillies. Baer didn't think this was just a fight over branding or licensing. It was a fight over who owned the character, who had the right to make money from it, and who had the right to keep the character's memory alive. The lawsuit says that Baer claimed he had made a deal with CBS as early as 1991 that gave him the rights to use the fictional character Jethro Bod and other well-known names, themes, and motifs from the popular TV show for his huge business empire. His idea was far more than just a new eatery. Baer saw a huge brand based on entertainment that would encompass themed restaurants, luxury hotels, and even casinos, all based on the long-lasting success and sentimental appeal of the Beverly Hillbillies. He thought it was a natural continuation of a cultural trend that had never really gone away from people's minds. Baer said that CBS's supposed contract with Jethro's BBQ not only made those rights less valuable, but also put years of work, money, and negotiations on his part at risk by letting another business use the Jethro name without his permission. Baer said that the network had virtually stopped him from making money off of the role that had defined his career and was still closely linked to his public persona. The complaint portrayed a picture of a guy who had patiently waited for the proper time to make his dream come true, only to find out that the ground beneath him had changed in secret. He stayed quite close to Buddy Epson long after the cameras stopped rolling, a friendship that lasted for decades and was based on real love, respect, and a shared history during the golden age of television. Their friendship was so deep that it never broke, even while Epson was dying. On July 6, 2003, just before his acting teacher and longtime friend died of pneumonia, he and Donna Douglas went to see Epson in the hospital. That calm, emotional moment away from the spotlight was a strong sign of a friendship that had lasted through celebrity, contracts, and even time itself. It wasn't a public goodbye. It was a private one that showed thanks, devotion, and the unspoken bond that comes from years of shared experiences and a deep personal relationship. But a much darker and more tragic catastrophe would happen later in his life that would overshadow the rest of it. In January 2008, his world was turned upside down when his live-in girlfriend, 30-year-old penthouse model Cherry Rhodes, was found dead in his Lake Tahoe home in what looked like a suicide. The fact that she was so young and he was 70 at the time just made the tragedy more shocking to the public. Rhodes left behind a suicide note in which he mentioned troubles in his relationship. This short but haunting sentence aroused a lot of curiosity and made what had been a very private relationship seem sad. The incident attracted significant media attention, converting private sorrow into public examination and SIG. When you're young and riding the wave of success, you don't always realize how much words or silence may hurt someone. He thinks about it. Nancy was an amazing woman, and I don't think I acknowledged it enough when we worked together. Baer has long been known for his role as Jethro Bowden, the lovable but dumb cousin whose over-the-top physical humor became a defining part of the program. In contrast, Kulp contributed intelligence, accuracy, and discipline to her role as Jane Hathaway. Those differences often made things feel distant off-screen. Nancy was very passionate about the craft. Baer says she was smart and expected everyone to act professionally. I was more instinctive and fun. There were occasions when those worlds didn't meet. For years, there were rumors that the two actors didn't get along. These rumors were fostered by Kulp's public comments in later life, which made it seem like she felt ignored or insulted. Baer now admits that those sentiments were true. He says confidently, "I never hated Nancy, but I can see how she would have felt alone." The show was mostly broad humor, which was good for me. She had a lot of pride, and occasionally that pride was misread. After the Beverly Hillbillies dissolved, their relationship went through one of the most traumatic times. Kulp had a hard time getting out of typecasting and eventually gave up acting. Whereas Baer was intimately connected to Jethro for many years, Baer thinks that success is odd. It gives you everything and takes things away at the same time. I didn't know how badly the aftermath of the show affected her. Kulp became politically engaged and outspoken in her latter years, which made her even more different from the nostalgic image audiences had of Miss Hathaway. Baer says he didn't get in touch when he should have. "I wish I hadn't done that." He explains, "There are times in life when answering the phone can change everything. I didn't do it." Now that Baer is older and wiser, they don't speak defensively. They speak humbly. Nancy deserved recognition for her brains, her skills, and her desire to be more than just a comedic character. He says, "If I could say anything to her right now, it would be thank you. She helped make something that still makes millions of people happy." Max Baer Jr. knows that honesty is just as important as laughter when it comes to building a legacy. He gives a fuller image of Nancy Kulp by finally talking about her openly. This picture honors both the magic they made together and the flaws that were there behind the scenes.